Welcome to the Expert Network Team podcast,
where our goal is to inform and educate our listeners on matters related to finance, legal, insurance, accounting, and other interests that are of personal and business nature.
We hope you will find our content useful as well as entertaining. The Expert Network Team consists of Karl Frank of A&I Financial, Mike Miller of Miller and Associates CPAs, Jeff Cromendike of Security First Insurance Agency, and I'm Nathan Merrill. I'm an attorney at Goodspeed and Merrill.
Together, our independent team combines our expertise to provide you insights and solutions, some straightforward, some profound, for real-life opportunities we see on a daily basis. We hope you enjoy the information contained in today's podcast and find it useful. If you'd like to learn more or desire to meet with any of the Expert Network team members in person, you can contact us at info@expertnetworkteam.com. That's info@expertnetworkteam.com.
And we encourage you to take advantage of a free consultation with any of our team members. Just mention this podcast when you schedule your appointment.
Now on to today's podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to today's podcast. I'm Karl Frank, and with me today I've got Nathan Merrill from Goodspeed and Merrill.
Hello.
How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. Happy Thanksgiving recovery.
Hey, happy holidays, my friend. It's
right.
Good to see you
That's
again.
what we're supposed to say, right?
Well, we want to keep it politically correct, right? We don't want the culture to come here and cancel us.
No canceling.
And with us today, we've got our special guest from A&I Financial Services, Francois Giguere. How are you, Francois?
I'm great. How are you guys?
We're doing good, man. We're doing really good. It's been crazy busy. Like, we're working too hard. Near
Last day of the
year.
month. It's always a crazy day.
Ooh, is it crazy for you in the law field?
Yeah.
What makes the last day of the month crazy?
It's closings. Everybody's trying to get stuff done.
Everybody's trying to do things. Yeah, you do a lot
And then
of
we do our
transaction
billings by month as well, so.
Oh, so you actually want to get paid?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't want to hear about it. As your client, it's okay. You can let that slide for a little bit.
Let it slide.
Well, that's
Send you that shocker statement a couple months later.
It wasn't too bad.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't been too shocked. I feel very fairly treated. We make a lot of demands of you guys, and you guys are great. One of the things that, and speaking of money, one of the things that is a big topic for us at our firm at A&I Financial Services, when we do wealth management, right? We take care of people, we help them grow and protect their investments, choose how they want to be taxed, and live in alignment with their values, goals, and relationships. And a big part of our industry is growing those assets. But what we're going to talk about today is Francois' area of expertise. And it's something we've been working on as a firm for many years. And it's a new way of looking at it. And it's a product that we provide. It's a solution that we provide. It's something that a client of ours can look at, hold in their hands, and feel confident that they can make withdrawals from their retirement accounts, their investment accounts, for the rest of their lives. So we're super excited to talk about withdrawals, the withdrawal policy statement, making withdrawals in retirement. And Francois was part of that committee and our leader in our firm. And it's just going to be a lot of fun to hand it off and hear what he's got to say.
You know, Francois, we were talking a little bit before we went live with today's podcast, and you were bantering with Karl a little bit about some of the emphasis that is in your profession on the build side of the equation in preparation for retirement. Before we get into talking about what you do and what a withdrawal statement is and how you plan out the drawdown portion of retirement, maybe you can tell me a little bit about what got you interested in kind of emphasizing and focusing this. What led you to this being one of those primary drivers of how you approach?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. The main reason is that I'm in my late 50s. A lot of my clients are in the late 50s. So we're all at the stage of our lives where we're coming near the end of the accumulation phase, and we're starting to focus more on how the withdrawal stage will look like. So that's one. Two, I think as an industry, we do a very good job when it comes to accumulating. We don't do a good job of doing the withdrawal and putting our clients at a place where they feel confident that the withdrawal is going to make sure that they don't run out of money or that they don't die with a big bag of assets left behind so that they didn't live the life that they could have lived.
Right. The miserly kind of, I would call it playing defensively or living defensive posture when it comes to
not getting as much
tapping
as you
into your
want.
retirement, right?
Right. Money in alignment with your goals and values is very rewarding. But if you're living in fear of running out of money, you're really defeating a lot of what's fun in life.
And it can be scary. We live longer than ever. So our retirement can be 30, 35 years, even longer. So I can understand when you start off with that it could be scary. And that's where us as financial advisors, we can play a big role in minimizing that fear and putting a plan in place that gives them confidence in the withdrawal that they can take and do it safely.
So when do you start that process? I assume it's sometime before people actually pull the trigger and say, I'm not going to work anymore, but how far in advance do you start to have the conversation with folks about what kind of lifestyle do you want?
I think it's important to do it pretty early because oftentimes it's a great motivator to save more for our clients. So I think it goes hand in hand with the saving part. Determining when you want to stop and how much you think you're going to need on a monthly basis or a yearly basis. So we do it pretty quickly, but we get more into the details of a lot of the hypothesis we have to make on what they need and what are some of the things they want to do with their money. Do they want to pay for college for their kids, 100%, 50%, 75%? Do they plan on paying weddings for children? I just went through that a couple of years ago with my son. They get pretty expensive, so you need to plan for those things. So I think it's just part of the planning that we do. But as an industry, we have historically, when it comes to the distribution, use kind of a 4% rule, and there's not a lot of science behind the withdrawal. And I think in the last few years, more has been done to kind of develop a science with how much you can take out. And that's fascinating for me, and I think that's an opportunity for our industry to really go in an area that's not been focused on.
So I'm notorious in these podcasts for sending out curveballs every once in a while. I don't know what they call that in hockey, like the curveball equivalent in hockey. But I'm gonna shoot one at you right now because this is something I remember from back in the early 2000s. After 9/11, there was a fairly significant shift in sentiment about what people wanted out of their lives. It was all about the rat race. Karl, we've talked about this. The .com, everybody was getting, rich, and that's all they wanted. And then 9/11 happened, and it kind of shook everybody, almost to their core, at least to their foundation, right?
It really did.
And I've been hearing more and more to some of the podcasts I listen to that I sense a swell among people that COVID's kind of done the same thing. It's caused them to reprioritize, reassess.
The great resignation. People aren't coming back to work.
They're not coming back to work, but they want deeper, stronger, more substantial relationships with family.
I hope so.
And it's changing some of these accumulation targets, I think. Have you guys seen any of that? I mean, I'll let you answer first, Francois, because I assume that's going to affect timing of when people start doing that withdrawal and what targets they might need to hit. Have you seen any of that sentiment change?
I do believe that the last 2 years have really changed how people see things. I think it doesn't change for me the accumulation phase. It just changes that I think we need to put more focus on what will you do when you get to that stage of your life. It's one thing to have money to spend, but you need to wake up in the morning and have a purpose. And the danger is you retire and you haven't thought about what you will do with yourself and how you're going to find purpose in your life and meaning in your life. And I think that those are the areas that we have to have more conversation with our clients about so that they have a plan in place, also what to do with their days and how they're going to spend their days. Because a lot of I think people that retire that are unhappy, it's because they haven't planned that stage. They've just focused on getting funds
to
ready.
the retirement, and then they don't know what to do with themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's one of the most rewarding things that we do. We have conversations with people where it's outside of just the math and the numbers, and we really look at what the numbers mean and make them work for the people. Francois, what are maybe you can describe some of the key number risks, some of the key financial risks that people face when they're making withdrawals out of their accumulated portfolios?
Well, the key risk, it's that you run out of money. That's the number one risk. That you spend too much and you get to 80 years old and you don't have any more money. So that's the number one risk. I would say the second risk is not spending enough. And then you end up with a big amount of assets and you kind of didn't enjoy your retirement as much as you could have. And the third risk is a sequence of returns. So what that would mean, it's just when you're about to retire, the stock market has a really big dip, and that affects how much money you have for retirement. So how can you protect against those things? Some of those risks we can eliminate, but most of those risks we can only minimize.
What can you do? How can you reduce these three key risks that you run out, that you don't spend as much as you could, or that you have a world event or a stock market event?
Well, I think what our task force did at the firm is trying to find a way to minimize running out of money risk. And what we came up with, reading a lot of the ideas from others, but combining everything together, was putting a guardrail system. So this is a system where we define an amount of money that you're going to be spending, but if your portfolio reduces to a certain amount, we reduce the income to protect against running out of money. And if the portfolio does better than expected, then we'll increase the income. And instead of using like a 4% rule, we use a software that does a probability of success. But we don't want to use that with clients, but that's kind of the foundation behind what we do. And the advantage of doing a probability of success software, it's with the 4% rule that they have, you assume that your client spends the same amount of money for every year in retirement. With the probability of success, you can plan for if you want to do more trips early on in retirement, if you want to buy a big car every 5 years, we can put that into the planning, and the system will take that into account when you do your software execution.
So a lot of detailed work behind the scenes, but from a client point of view, they know they've got a person they can talk to that's helping make it easy for them.
And what we strive to do, we try to do a one-pager that gives them the amount that they can spend with the guardrail upper and lower, and then we get them to sign a one-page document that's a withdrawal statement that kind of explains how it will work. So we normally start with an amount. We'll increase that for inflation unless the portfolio goes down significantly. We set right from the get-go what will cause your yearly or quarterly withdrawals to get reduced or increase. So there's no surprise for the client. So it's simple, and I think the guardrails really takes the stress out because we have a plan in place if the market doesn't do as well or if the market does really well to adjust the withdrawals.
So I'm gonna go back a little bit to kind of one of the premise of your kind of philosophy here, and that is that the risks involved are that you spend too much, that you run out of money. That's one of the risks. Folks who end up with significant retirements are usually folks who are used to living within their means. That's how they came up with a retirement in the first place. What causes, or what are the primary drivers behind someone spending too much? Because it seems like that would be a behavioral change for them to actually overspend in retirement when they've spent their whole lives living, within their means enough to save up for retirement. Well,
the reality is that when you retire, you have a lot of free time. So It's a lot easier to spend money, one.
So I like to eat a lot more? Or
yeah, and if you want to play golf do things like that, you decide that, okay, now I'm going to ski. Well, you have to buy equipment, you have to buy passes, so those are expensive.
And you might as well get good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you only live once.
And the other thing, too, it's you can think that you're not as healthy and that you won't live as long, and then the reality is you live longer, and as you live longer,
you live longer than you think.
Yeah.
So then taking that to the next step, now you've set up these guardrails for them. Your assumption, if I understand it correctly, is that folks then basically spend all that money they're taking out. I'm going to go back again to the mindset of folks. So if they're getting, call it $100,000 a year, how do they adapt to that idea now that they can spend the whole $100,000? Is that a problem for folks, or?
I think it's not because of the guardrail. Because
Okay.
the guardrail is going to say, okay, if your portfolio goes below this amount, your income instead of being 100 might be 91,000 or 90,000. So we know ahead of time, and most of the time we reduce the income by such an amount that it shouldn't prevent them from living a lifestyle that's pretty good. It's going to be a smaller decrease that we do, but they know that they have that to protect themselves, and I think that makes them more confident to spend the 100,000 because they know if something happens where the income from the portfolio isn't as good as it was, that they'll be able to reduce it a little bit. So I think this is a way to spend more in retirement and feel confident that you can spend more.
And the whole point in spending more, so to speak, is just to enjoy more fully the span of your retirement.
Exactly, because
A richer experience.
if you look at the studies, the time to enjoy your retirement the most is going to be the first 10 years. The last 10 years.
I guess I'll be 95.
How about that?
For the
You're gonna
first
make
10
it,
years
my
of
friend.
retirement?
Yeah, I'll probably retire at 85.
You might.
I
you
might
might.
retire at 85.
And you
You're
might
right.
not.
I might not.
You've
but-
got the farm, the ranch.
Yeah.
You'll never really quit.
No, I'm. You probably have a few people like me who
I
are
think you'll still
I'll
be on the
never
podcast.
retire mindset, but
You'll still be on the podcast.
probably I'll
Why
just sound
not?
a little older. I'll be a little slower.
I
Hey,
can't
if you're
imagine what the
85 and you
technology's
wake
gonna
up
be.
in the morning and you're excited about going to work, there's nothing wrong with that.
You're right.
Isn't that the truth, right? If you wake up in the morning, you're excited about that.
So going back to how does portfolio construction change through this withdrawal period? What do you do differently to make sure that you have that predictable income stream?
Well, this is where I think our firm thinks differently. And I think with what we've seen in the last few months with inflation,
Wait. It's inflation? There's
inflation. Yeah.
Have we heard of that? Do you
I don't know.
think
I've
it's
been
real?
sitting in my basement. Have we
You
all
have.
just been kind of confined to our basements at this
Yeah,
point?
look,
They're
I
hoping.
know, I know you drive a car with a big engine that uses a little bit of the nice gas,
They're all V8s. Yes.
not the
I love-
cheap gas.
No.
You have to have noticed.
We didn't do a turkey for Thanksgiving. So
You didn't. You couldn't afford the turkey.
we couldn't afford
It's
the
$5,
turkey.
my friend.
We
That's
couldn't
less
afford
than
the
a gallon
power.
of gas.
Well, that was our problem. Remember, we were out at the ranch, and anyway,
We were.
I digress. So inflation.
So because of inflation, I think the biggest risk is a loss of purchasing power. So your dollar you're going to be spending won't keep up with inflation. So I'm a big believer, and I think our firm is, that kind of the plan with our clients is we'll put a year of expenses aside in their bank account. And then we'll do 2 years of expenses in a separate account that's going to be just fixed income. So you have 3 years of expenses that should not be affected by the ups and downs of the markets.
So their inflation exposure is really just 1 year at a time.
And then I'm going to be aggressive with the rest of the portfolio because
You gotta grow it.
the equity, it's the most secure way to keep up with
Inflation, right?
And over the last couple of decades, we haven't seen a lot of inflation, but that could be changing. So I believe that we need to be more aggressive long-term with how we invest. We just have to put the things in place to protect our clients short-term if there's ups and downs in the market, where if the market has a bad year, you have a year of expenses in your bank account and 2 years in fixed income. You shouldn't be worried about what the market does in 1 year, because over 3-4 years, it's going to do well, and then you'll be able to replenish your bank account and your fixed income bucket.
So if you can, I know that you guys have some limitations in terms of what you can delve into with specifics, but help me understand what a fixed income structure might look like.
Well, fixed income, it's corporate bonds, it's government treasuries, it's debts, it's different products like that give you interest rates. So normally how these products work is they're going to give you a 4% interest, and at the end of the debt you get the value of the debt. So if the debt is worth $100, you might pay for it today $98, $102, depending if the interest rate of the debt is higher than the current interest rate. So there's some security in knowing that your risk, it's if the person that you made the debt to is not a good credit risk and they become bankrupt. But normally you're sure to get the money at the end, and you have interest coming in periodically.
So are you doing, this is again just for my better understanding, is most of that done through funds that aggregate, diversify that risk, or are you actually going? I suppose you could buy government treasuries all day long, and you're pretty much secure in those. But
Yeah, this is I feel fixed income is a lot more complex than equity. So we really rely on experts. So we
Okay.
have mostly 2 firms that we use, but there's probably 4 that are part of our portfolios, and they'll do a wide range of different debt instruments.
so they're the ones kind of going out and finding the opportunities, who's paying the best yields versus the risk exposure, all that.
Yeah, and then there's a duration. So do you want a debt that's going to be long term or short term?
Right.
So if you're in an environment where you think that interest rates are rising, you might want to keep your
Do
debt short term.
Yeah.
If you think that the rates are going to stay even, maybe going longer term, it's better, because the longer the debt, normally the higher the interest rate. So those are the things you look at from a fixed income point of view.
Interesting.
Francois, what about the risk that, something's going to happen with your health? I mean, there's huge risks we face the longer we live.
Well, I see that as the risk of running out of money. And I think in life, we always try to insure ourselves against those type of risks, that it's insuring your home, insuring your life. I think in retirement, the biggest risk is you needing long-term care. So I'm a big believer in insuring that. My wife and I took an insurance policy out 6 years ago, and we paid it over 5 years. And I think that the risk is greater if the first person in the couple needs care and they deplete the assets for the surviving spouse. So when they have to finish their life, they've lost a lot of their assets because they used it all to pay for long-term care and for the first spouse that needed care. And these products, insurance products, you get 6 to 8 times the amount of coverage that you need compared to what you invest. So if you invest $1, you'll get $6 or $7 or $8 of care. So I think it's a great product. And now they have products that if you never need care, the money you get back either in a death benefit or you can claim the money back. So what you're losing out on, it's the appreciation of money if you had invested it, but you're sure to get your premium back in one way or in another.
So you can forgo a little bit of return but still get your money back?
Yeah, exactly.
So what you're saying is the risk, and this is something that I think is really different, but it's the real risk you're seeing with a married couple, where one of them is in poor health or one of them is just the guy, or there's an age difference. Anyway, one of them has a shorter life expectancy than the other. The risk is that the first person will die and use up all the money so that the second one's broke.
That's the risk. Because if it's the second one that needs the care, you can deplete your assets and go on Medicaid, and then you can get covered by Medicaid. It won't be as good quality, but you'll get care given to you and paid for you. The risk is if the first one needs care, and like the care that historically has been the most expensive, it's if you get like dementia or that can be 6, 7, 8 years. That can really put a big burden financially on a household, and that's where the danger can happen.
Am I remember it correctly that once upon a time, joint life annuities were a very common product to have in a retirement account, or at least converting your retirement account to a joint life annuity at the point of retirement was a very common strategy? Is that?
Well, the reality was back when a lot of companies, their retirement plans were pensions
Right.
that gave you a known amount of income when you retired. The pensions that we have now, you accumulate money, but the risk is all on the individual
Right.
to make sure. So I'm not sure that historically you had a lot of annuities, but I
Okay.
think what we're seeing now, it's more annuities, and I think the best way to go is with a joint annuity. Unless there's a big difference in age or there's a big health
Right.
difference between the two, and then maybe it makes sense to get it on the healthier one, and then the difference of what you're saving, maybe buy a life insurance policy to protect
Because the
second
annuity
one.
is a better deal the longer the life expectancy, or is that the assumption?
Well, that's where, as an individual, where you make your money. It's if you
With the
live
time.
a long time,
Got it.
that's where you make money, because then you benefit from the others that died early.
Got it. Now, if just for some reason, I think like some of my early retirement accounts earlier on in my career had this feature. You know how they change all the time?
Oh, yeah.
But they had this feature where it would convert
You
to like
could-
a joint life
You
annuity
could do an annuity.
as a retirement like feature. It would just automatically
Well,
convert.
right now, there's a lot of talk to try to incorporate annuities into 401ks. That's one of what the government is trying to
Decide
Get-
whether we're going to do or
do
not.
more and more of those.
That's an active consideration.
Yes.
Interesting.
And there's pros and cons to that. That could be a really interesting podcast in the future.
Yeah, we should talk
Because
between that and the new Colorado, forced savings law.
yeah,
that we
the
came
government
in
is,
line with.
trust me, they're here to help you. Okay, so without getting too
Sorry,
political.
my lips bleeding now.
I love teasing you. Okay, so I mean, one of the things that I love about our conversations here is really making it real, and so maybe we can just kind of talk about what you have in front of you there, and that that one pager document that you have. So here's a family who has their life savings around $4 million. Right, and you're gonna give them the guardrails, and so what does that look like on that piece of paper that's right in front of you there?
Well, this is a couple that have done a good job of accumulating. They have $4 million of investable assets, and I don't count their home. Their home is fully paid, and that's not part of the plan. So what we were looking at, it's how much could they spend? And in this case, we came up with a figure of $164,000 a year that they can spend. And this is on top. This individual has a pension, and their biggest worry is they both have had health scare in the last 4 or 5 years. So their word is that they won't live very long. So, but we still are planning a little longer than they want, but we're trying to be a little bit more aggressive in our planning when it comes to the amount of money. Because one of the things that we haven't talked about, it's when we determine how much money that they can have, it depends a little bit on their risk tolerance. So if you don't want to take any risks, you want to be sure that you won't run out of money, well, that's going to have an impact where you're going to have less to spend because you don't want to take as much risk. So then what I did, we're going to be a little bit more risky, but in our assumptions, we're going to still assume they're going to live a longer life. So this is a way to kind of mitigate the risk and focus. And if they do die early, well, they'll leave more to their kids, and I think they're at a place that they want to do that. They don't want to do a lifestyle that's much different than what they're living right now. So that's what we're doing with them, and what we're doing, if we're looking at their guardrails, well, their guardrails, it's their portfolio. Let's say it's $4 million. If the portfolio goes above $4.6 million, then we'll increase their income, and instead of being at $160,000, then we'll be at $170,000. And if their portfolio goes below $3.1 million, then we'll reduce their income, and then maybe we'll be at $148,000 instead of $164,000. So this is
And that's assumed over what period of time?
well, in this case, this is a case where we're going to delay Social Security until age 70. So they're 65 right now. So
Okay.
this is going to be the plan for 5 years, and in 5 years we're going to decrease
And
the
add in
amount of money
Social
they
Security.
get because they're going to get Social Security.
And more directly, I think that any day that they hit that number, so if they hit 4.6 a year from now, they get a raise a year from now.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
And this amount is increased every year by inflation.
their income.
Their income. So the 160, if the inflation is 5%, they'll get an extra 5% next year to their income. If the market is down, then we don't increase for inflation. That market has to be up for them to.
But there's a floor. You're not adjusting downward necessarily.
Yeah, they stay at the 164.
Okay.
The only way that 164 goes down, it's if their big portfolio goes below 3.8 million.
So they
Got
can grow their income faster than the cost of living
Yeah.
for the duration of their
Yep.
lives. Pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I think, again, my mindset is the never stop working mindset. So provided that you can do that. But as a second alternative, I love the idea. I have an aging mother who, worked and scrimped and saved to raise 4 kids on her own. And the one thing I've tried to encourage her to do is this exact same thing. Is like, don't worry about leaving anything behind for us. You've sacrificed everything to help us get the right start. I want you to enjoy your retirement. I want you to spend your money. I want you to die broke. And so this is kind of that mindset is, the whole point in working and saving for retirement for a lot of folks outside of extraordinary wealth or, life-changing wealth, a lot of that retirement income and the savings that people put into these accounts is meant to support them in their lifestyle. But I would suggest our parents have a bit more responsible mentality that they feel like a duty bound or honor bound to leave something behind for us.
But Nate, I think the advantage of this, it's that they'll be able to give it while they're alive and see their kids and grandkids
See the impact.
enjoy it.
Right.
And how much more fun is that?
Well, and create the impact too. We've talked about this in other ways too. That the money is just the medium. I mean, I believe that wholeheartedly. That if you can do more in life to help create a legacy of wealth creation and family wealth legacy,
A healthy money behavior.
than just leaving a big pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, so
Absolutely.
to speak. So
Align it.
I love that
Yeah,
idea.
and if you die at 95, your kids might be 65 by then or 70 years old. That's not when they need the money.
Right.
Like I have a 30-year-old son that's trying to buy a house in a market that's been crazy. Like we did our annual gift to him,
Right.
to his wife a month
And that
ago.
doesn't even make a dent in the current market.
No,
Oh
But-
my gosh, by the time you give it to them and the house is so expensive.
but it's now that they need it. So if you can afford it,
Right.
it's now that you want to be able
That
to
you
help
want to
him.
be of assistance.
When he's 65, 70, and hopefully by then he'll have
He's
accumulated what he
standing on his
needs.
own.
Right.
And bless your mom's heart.
Yeah.
You
She was
did
great.
good. And I can only imagine your siblings did well too. Good job.
Yeah.
Good job, Mom. What
Good job, Mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Francois, closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts. I just think that this is the future, and what we have to do is help them find the funds to be able to live the life that they want, but also talk about how they want to spend their days. I think that's going to be important, and I think this is a great opportunity for us as an industry to really help people.
I agree.
Well said, my friend. Glad to have you as a partner.
Glad
Nate,
to be part of it.
glad to have you as my podcast partner.
Absolutely. It's been a good one.
Hey, everybody. Create another beautiful day.
Thank you, Francois.
Always glad to be here.
Thank you for joining us today. Hope you enjoyed the information we shared.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please feel free to share it with someone else. And join us next time.
If you want to meet with a member of the team, please contact us at info@expertnetworkteam.com. That's info@expertnetworkteam.com.
If you have special topics you'd like to hear about, please reach out to us and let us know at the same email address. Again, that's info@expertnetworkteam.com. Thank you for joining us and have a great day. Thank you for listening to this podcast. We want to remind you that listening to this podcast does not establish a client-professional relationship with any of the firms represented, nor does it constitute legal, investment, or accounting advice, and the views are those of the professionals only.
Investment advisory services may be provided through A&I Financial Services, and securities may be provided through Genios Wealth Management.